So first thing we're talking about is what we should do in during the 25 minutes of our teaching time. The first 5 to 10 minutes is what we have to spend on introduction. There are two types of introduction. You either revise something from the previous classes, something that's relevant for this week's class, or you want to talk about some new keywords that you would use eventually later on in the class, right? So in the basic exchange rules, the first thing we want to start talking of is in the introduction part. We want to talk about the point system. Ask every kid in the class how many points each of these pieces have. So I usually hold these in my hand, one of each type. I hold them in my hand and I'm randomly picking out one at a time. How many points is this, Chris?
That is worth no points.
A king is worth no points?
A king is worth none.
Okay. How many points is this, Amber?
3.
3 points. Excellent. How many points is this?
Worth 9 points.
Are you sure?
I am positive.
There you go. And so once you finish that introduction, once you've made sure that everybody in the class actually knows what the piece movements, what the piece point scores are, we talk about the exchange rules by defining what the exchange is. An exchange is where you are sacrificing one of your pieces to gain something that has the same point score. Not the same piece. What everybody thinks is that it has to be the exact same piece, but those who come to an academy, and you want to emphasize this many more times, because what we're doing here is different. They could have done this at home and they could have done it differently, right? So in an academy, we teach that it has to be the same point score. So capturing, and in fact, if you start with a rook, if you were to lose your rook and capture this rook in turn, it's an exchange. A very common exchange happens when I move it 2 spaces and you move it 2 spaces. I move it 2 spaces and you move it 2 spaces. I capture you, right? And you capture me. This is not an exchange because the piece that captured is still living. And this piece that captured is still living. It's not an exchange yet. But then, I take my queen, I hope it's the white stone, but I take my queen and I capture the king. A very common exchange. And the king captures you back. Now, the capturing piece and the captured piece, well, the same piece, they're all dead now, right? Now this is an exchange. An exchange happens when you sacrifice a piece to get back another piece of the same point score. And by that definition, capturing a rook, capturing a bishop for a knight, or a knight for a bishop, is also an exchange. Now, there are specific reasons why you should exchange. Now, if you're very new to chess and you find exchange to be really funny, you would exchange. But remember, in chess you're trying to play for a win. And so there are some strategies that you could use, some tactics and strategies that you should use to identify if it's a good exchange or a bad exchange. For example, let's talk about the first one. Now let's say we are playing our games, we're playing a regular game, and I gave you a check. I gave you a check. See now? I have a check, but I'm also attacking that. Right? When I gave you a check and you decide to do CPR, you can't capture, so you're going to block me. I'm going to capture you now. Is that an exchange?
No.
That's not an exchange. In an exchange, there's a give and a take. I mean, I just took one. Did I give away a rook in return? No. Not yet. So that's not an exchange. So how many points lead do I have now?
The 5-point lead.
You have I have a 5-point lead over my opponent. When you have a 5-point lead over the opponent, the rules of the game change all of a sudden for you. You are now no longer playing to win. You're playing to weaken the other player. You're weakening the other player. The best way to weaken the other player is to sacrifice a piece and get the same points back in return by exchanging pieces. So now if I were here and this guy was somehow magically there, right, and then I captured that, or let's say that this guy was here. Now it's a very bad thing for the blacks to exchange off the knight, because they're already down 5 points. They need all the strength they can. For example, let's say that we have 2 Lego blocks and we're playing fight with those Lego blocks. We have a Lego block here and we have another Lego block down there. They're standing on 2 feet, right? Let's say this guy goes off and knocks off his foot. Now he's having a very hard time balancing on 1 foot. What about this guy? He's standing on all 2 feet. He's just fine. Now let's say that you're playing with your blocks and you exchange off their arms. You see, this guy is a lot more stronger than him because now he has to balance with 1 foot and he only has 1 hand to defend himself. This guy is quite stable on 2 feet and he can easily land a punching blow. What happens if this happens? Ooh, this guy's practically gone, because the only foot he has, he's going to use it to stand up and balance himself. And if he's going to go give him one of those karate kicks and breaks off this leg too, the king is all by himself now. The game is over. I mean, I don't know if it's gross or not, but this is the example I give. When it comes to Legos and all the kids, they don't mind. Right? So the idea here is, once you have a 5-point lead, your game dynamics should change completely. And now you're not fighting to win, you're fighting in the game to just exchange pieces off, because the more you exchange and the bigger pieces you can exchange, the more stronger you become and the more weaker the other person becomes. Right? So keep looking for exchanging of pieces. Remember, pawns are not pieces. Pieces are all those major pieces, and the minor pieces are those that are in the back. Pawns are not pieces. So if you exchange of pawns, fine, but it doesn't mean you've done anything significantly important yet. Right? Exchanging pawns is not important. For example, somebody says, okay, I'm getting these 2. Now how many points is this?
5.
And in exchange, I'm going to get this. I'm going to lose these, and in exchange I'm going to get this. Would this be an exchange? Remember, pawns are not pieces. They don't count. So even if you had all these, in reality all you had was, because the other remaining piece, whatever he has, he could have easily captured your 2 pawns at some point in the game, and then the advantage is gone, right? So pawns don't count. So if your question was, are these considered exchange when you get this in return and you lose these 3 pieces, the answer is no, because at some point these could even prove more valuable, by the way, because you could promote them to a queen. But with this guy, this is just a rook for the rest of his life, right? And so, for that reason, you wouldn't know, you wouldn't call this an equal like-to-like exchange, although the point scores are the same. But the pawns don't count in the exchange, right? The other thing is, it's always important to note that when you are exchanging, let's say that this guy has lost both his rooks. We lost both the rooks, and he has a queen. And this guy has no queen, but both the rooks. Simple point score says, this is only 9 points, this is 10 points, and that's really true. 2 rooks that are connected are more powerful than a queen. If the 2 rooks are in 2 different directions, then yes, the queen can go attack them both simultaneously by forking them or something. But if they are connected, then 2 rooks together are more stronger than a queen. Right? Now coming back to the other part with the exchanges. The first exchange rule is, you have to get a 5-point lead. You're striving to get that 5-point lead, and once you get the 5-point lead, you're going for the exchange. And the fastest way for getting a 5-point lead is by finding a way to capture the rook. The next way is to capture either the 2 knights, or the knight and bishop, or the bishop and knight, or any of the combination, right? That's 6 points. That's the next best way. Of course, you get the queen and you have a 5-point lead, right? So a rook or a queen by themselves gets you the 5-point lead, or you have an advantage by capturing 2 knights or 2 bishops or a knight and a bishop, and you have a 6-point lead, and that counts as good enough for exchanges. Remember that when you capture them, you shouldn't lose them back again. It should not be an exchange right there, right? You need to have a lead of 5 points. Now let's talk about the second case where it is okay to do the exchange. Now, we're playing a knights game. This guy goes there. And let's say I don't have the pawn for now. I don't have these two for now, okay? He moved his knight. How many times has he moved his knight so far? Let's keep counting. One. He's going to move something else. He's going to move his knight again. Let's see, there's a support there. He's going to move his knight again. 2 times to the knight. I'm going to do something else here. He's going to move his knight again. Well, I'm going to do something else for now. He's going to move his knight again. Move 4 times. He has wasted 4 moves on his knight alone. And now if I exchange this with no reason why, just exchange it even if I don't have a 5-point lead. If I've exchanged off this knight, I've just wasted 4 of his moves. Because in chess, you're trying to do 2 things. You're trying to either get material advantage, or you're trying to waste the other person by wasting his moves. It's like this funny race where you're running and you're trying to push the other person out. Right? You have your racetrack. You're running in your racetrack trying to get an advantage. But in chess, you're also trying to nudge the other person out of there. It's like this car. It's like this IndyCar racing. Right? You're racing in a car. You're trying to reach the goal post, the end of the race, as fast as you can. But you're trying to do that by blocking the guy next to you or behind you. You're trying to push them out or block them out. And that's what we're doing here. So if you see what we have done here, this knight went there, 1 move, 2 moves, the other, right, from here, 1 move, 2 moves, 3 moves, and the 4th move. And what did we do? This guy has spent 0 moves in his life so far. He has not developed at all. So you're taking this very undeveloped piece and you're exchanging off a very well-developed piece. And that's okay. That's a very good plan. So taking your undeveloped piece or exchanging your undeveloped piece for a very well-developed piece is a good exchange strategy. And you want to see how these things have happened. So in this particular case, we said we started off with the knight. Knight went to the corner of the board, 1 move, 2 moves. Sorry, I went 1 move, correct development, 1 move, 2 moves, 3 and a 4. 4 moves with the knight, and it just gets exchanged in 1 single move, 1 swift move. Right? That's exchange 2. Now, sometimes we play games where we don't capture any pieces at all. The board is crowded with pieces. It's okay to exchange pieces to make the board a little easier to move, because your pieces, your main pieces, have to move up there. So let's say you had all kinds of pawns. Let's say you had a pawn. Let's say you had all kinds of pawns and you've blocked each other very efficiently. Right? You've blocked them very efficiently everywhere. And sometimes we do play pawn games a lot, right? So if you have blocked them all up very efficiently, all of a sudden the game is so cramped. So you see that there is a black that's building that wall. Now we'll build it with the white on the side. Now the black bishop can't move much if it's somewhere in that area. White bishop here is completely trapped. No piece can move anywhere. And in that case, it's okay to exchange pieces, to loosen up the board. It's okay to loosen up the board by exchanging pieces so that the other pieces can go launch an effective attack. It's okay to exchange a few pieces so that the other pieces can launch an effective attack. That's it. That's the basic exchange rules. And you want to make sure that everybody knows that after a 5-point lead, they have to change their game from a kill to a exchange. You're no longer fighting to kill the king or get the king. You're now in the mode of exchanging. And then you want to make sure everybody realizes that by asking them all that question. What is the first and the most important rule for exchange? That when you get a 5-point lead, you're not going to play the game to get the king, but to exchange. Many times kids have played games where they get a significant advantage, but they can't convert it to a win because they've not focused on exchanging pieces.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy to exchange of pieces and pawns and everything if you have got a 5-point lead than focusing on checkmating the king. And the fewer pieces he has, the harder it is for him to checkmate anyways. Right? So that is the basic exchange rules.